Carl Jung discovered a person can finish an entire life and never once be awake inside it. He gave the thing that lives that life while you look away a name, the persona, and he warned it does its best work the moment you feel proud of finally seeing it. He knew it from the inside. In 1913, after the break with Freud that cost him nearly everything, Jung looked up from a successful life and could not say what myth he was living. He found that he did not know. You know that silence before you have words for it. A decade that was yours on paper, and you cannot find yourself anywhere inside it. Something in you goes quietly out, like a room you thought was occupied, and wasn't. You do not need to have read a page of Jung to feel this. The years keep moving, and the cost is that you were never in them. And from here it goes one of two ways. This waking becomes a badge you wear above everyone still asleep, and it quietly shuts your eyes again. Or it becomes the rarest thing a person ever learns to do. But Jung found something stranger still. The feeling of finally being awake is the exact moment a person falls back asleep, in a place they have not learned to look. Until you see what actually woke up, being awake will keep choosing your life for you. Start with the thing that pulled you here. You look back over a stretch of your life, a job, a marriage, a whole decade, and you could not clearly remember being inside it. You remember that it happened. You have the photographs and the scars to prove it. But the felt sense of standing in those rooms, present and awake, is thin. Some of it is simply gone. This runs deeper than any failing memory, and once you see it, you cannot look away. You were running, getting up, performing the day, saying the expected thing, holding the expected opinion, and doing all of it well enough that no one, including you, noticed there was nobody fully home. Think how ordinary that is. You can drive a familiar road and arrive with no memory of the drive. You can sit through a conversation and realize at the end you heard none of it. Now stretch that from a car ride to a career. Stretch it across the years you thought were the main event. The same quiet machinery that carries you through a distracted commute can carry you through a marriage, a job, a self, while the part of you that actually experiences things stays folded up somewhere in the back. You already know it in smaller, harmless places. Say it plainly, because shame wants in here and it has no business being here. You are not lazy. You are not asleep in some weak, embarrassing way. You are doing what a human animal is built to do. You built a version of yourself the world could recognize and reward, and then you let that version keep the keys, because it worked. Jung would not call that your personality. He calls it the persona, the face you hold up so the group knows how to treat you. He is clear that everyone needs one. The trouble begins the day you can no longer feel anyone standing behind it. So you carry a strange grief, and it is not grief for a person who died. It is for a presence you never fully spent, for years that were yours on paper and that you were never really inside. And one thing here will matter later, so hold on to it even as it stings. Underneath the grief, there is a small private thrill, a quiet sense of having seen something the people around you still cannot. At least I noticed. At least I am awake now. Keep that feeling close. We are going to come back for it. It only pretends to be proof, and it is already beginning to do something to you. Some nights the screen is the wrong place for this. If you'd rather just listen, Surreal Mind is on Spotify now. The words, in the dark, wherever you are. The link's in the description. But before you decide you have finally woken up, there is a harder question waiting. If the mask was living your life, then who exactly is noticing now? And what makes you so sure it is not simply the next mask, wearing a more flattering face? So who was it? Who got up in your body and lived those years while you watched from behind the eyes? It is tempting to make it sinister, some false self forced on you by other people. It is gentler and harder than that. The one living your life was a version of you that you built, on purpose, a long time ago. for a reason that was good at the time. Go back to how it formed. When you were young, you learned fast which parts of you the room welcomed and which parts made it go quiet. You learned which feelings got you held and which got you left alone. Like every child who ever needed to belong, you began assembling a self out of the approved parts. The agreeable one, the capable one, the one who never needs much. Whatever your particular room rewarded, you grew fluent in it until the performance got so smooth it stopped feeling like performance at all. That is where the trouble begins, and Jung names the exact hinge. The cost arrives the day you can no longer tell the mask from the face. The day you would answer the question, who are you with your job title, your role, your reputation, and feel you had answered it completely. When that happens, the mask stops being something you wear. It becomes who shows up. It orders your coffee, picks your fights, defends your opinions, and you experience every bit of it as simply being yourself. Picture a woman, 52, the last of her children moved out a few weeks ago, standing in a kitchen that has gone suddenly and enormously quiet. She catches her hands setting the table for 4, the way they have set it every evening for 20 years, and she stops with the plate still in her arms. She had been waiting for this quiet, in a way, and instead, a strange vertigo came over her. She could not remember most of it. The thousands of ordinary evenings, the conversations she half heard over the noise of the stove, the version of herself her children would describe. All of it had happened, and almost none of it felt lived. It goes further than her manner. The opinions she defended most hotly, were they ever hers, or were they the opinions her people issued to their own? Worn so long they hardened into conviction. The wants that ran her 30s, did she choose them, or did she inherit them from a room full of people who all wanted the same things and called that wanting normal? The persona does more than manage how she looks. It supplies what she thinks, what she wants, what she is afraid of. It hands all of it over pre-approved, so she never has to feel the vertigo of not knowing. She felt that vertigo for the first time at 52, in a kitchen that would not stop being quiet. There is a deeper layer under even that. The self she performed was not her own invention. She had inherited most of its parts, the way a woman of her generation was taught to be easy to be around, to want little out loud, to keep her own weather to herself. She wore a self her mother had worn before her, handed down without a word. The collective she belonged to did not merely watch the mask, it stamped the pattern, and a pattern that old does not feel like a costume at all. It feels like character, like simply the kind of woman she had always been. That is the bargain, and it is a real one, not a swindle. In exchange for letting the mask drive, you get to belong without friction. You get certainty. You get a self that other people can predict and reward. And you get to skip the exhausting work of finding out what you actually think when no one is watching. For years, that trade can look exactly like a good life. Often it produces one, on paper. The paper never shows the cost. When the mask lives your life happens to the mask. The praise lands on it. The love lands on it. And some quiet part of you, the part folded up in the back, feels that none of it is reaching you and cannot say why. This is the loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. You can be surrounded, admired, married, employed, and still feel like a guest at your own life, because the person everyone is responding to is not the one experiencing it. The woman in the quiet kitchen understood something else in that moment, and it hurt more than the lost years. The people who loved her had loved the mask, because the mask was all she ever handed them. Her children, her husband, her closest friends, they could not reach the woman behind it, because she could not reach her either. For most of her life, she did not know there was a woman behind it at all. And there was never a single day she chose this. That is what makes it so hard to catch in the act. There was no morning she picked the mask over herself. There were only 1,000 small moments when the true thing cost slightly too much to say, so she said the smooth thing instead. Each smooth thing was another stitch, and one day the suit was seamless, with her inside it and no seam left to find. And this changes the whole grief. Whatever the grief insists, those years were not a waste. A structure lived them, doing its only job, keeping her safe and legible and fed, exactly as it was built to. She does not owe it her contempt. It carried her all the way to the quiet kitchen where she finally caught it, which is no small thing for a mask to do. But something had changed at that table. She was watching the mask now. Someone was home who had not been home before. And what that someone actually is, the thing you keep calling awake, turns out to be far smaller and far stranger than the word makes it sound. People get the moment you are in badly wrong. They imagine waking up as a floodlight. One switch, the whole house lit, everything seen at once, and now you live in permanent daylight. That is the fantasy the word carries. It is exactly why the feeling is so intoxicating and so misleading. What actually happened is much smaller. A single lamp came on in one room, and for the first time you could see a corner of a house you had been moving through blind. That is the whole event. Jung gives it a plain, unglamorous name. Not enlightenment, not ascension. He calls it making the unconscious conscious, taking one thing that was running you in the dark and carrying it into the light, where you can finally look at it. He puts it in a line people love to quote and rarely sit inside. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The waking you are so proud of is a single lamp, turned toward the dark, and nothing grander than that. That definition changes what waking is. A floodlight is something that happens to you. A lamp in one room is something you do, once, in one place, and then have to do again in the next room and the next. Consciousness, described this way, is a verb. It is an act you repeat, and the house is very large. And it hurts. The brochures for awakening leave this part out, and Jung refuses to soften it. The light does not arrive gently. The moment the lamp comes on, you do not only see the room, you see what the mask was doing in it. You see the conversations you were not present for, the people who loved a face you were never behind, the choices that were never really choices, only the persona running its program. None of it is comfortable to look at. The first honest thing waking does is hand you the bill. This is why so few people stay awake past this point, and it has nothing to do with weakness. The floodlight fantasy promised relief, and what the lamp actually delivers is responsibility. A person reaches exactly this doorway, feels the first cold draft of what real seeing is going to cost, and quietly reaches back for the switch. They turn the lamp off and call it peace, which is only the mask sliding back over one eye. You have not done that, or not yet. You are still standing at the edge of the light. Give yourself that and no more, because gilding it is the exact mistake this whole thing is about to expose. There is no trophy for staying in the light. It is only a harder place to stand, and standing there makes you no better than the ones who step back. It makes you a person with one lamp lit, in one room, in a very dark and very large house, with most of the doors still shut. Feel the true size of that, and let it make you humble rather than proud. You did not wake up. You woke up to one thing. There are rooms in you right now that are pitch dark, running exactly the way the whole house used to, and you cannot even name them yet, because that is what unconscious means. The lamp never shows you how much is still dark. It only shows you that the dark is there and that it is larger than the light. But your mind is already reaching to do something with this one small lamp. It wants to hold it up like a torch. It wants to carry it back into the hallway and shine it at everyone still living in the dark. And the instant it does, something you would never suspect takes the handle, wearing the face of the very thing you just woke up to. Go back and pick up the feeling from the first room, that small private thrill. At least I noticed. At least I'm awake now. Look straight at it, because the only real progress a person makes comes from looking hard at the thing they would rather feel superior about. You do not get free by picturing yourself full of light. You get free by making the darkness conscious, and this thrill is a piece of darkness. This, then, is your darkness. The instant you felt yourself wake up, something moved in fast to take the credit. It whispered that this made you rare, that the people around you were still asleep and you were not, and that the difference was a kind of worth. The surer you became that you had woken, the smaller everyone else quietly grew. That feeling is no proof of your awakening. It is the oldest thing in you moving in on the newest the moment it appears. Jung names the exact trap, and it is the hinge of the whole thing. The persona does not die the moment you catch it. It rebuilds. It takes the very fact that you woke and stitches a new face out of it. The face of the one who has finally seen and holds it out for you to wear. And Jung is unsparing about what wearing it does. To take any persona for yourself, even a wiser-looking one, is to fall back asleep inside it. You lit one lamp in one room. The new face turns that into, I am an awake person. It takes a single act and hardens it into an identity you now have to defend. If that landed, put it in the comments. In your own words, I mistook feeling above people for being awake. And this is why it is more dangerous than sleeping ever was. Behind the persona, some part of you always knew faintly that something was off. The new face removes even that, because it wears the face of a rival, and a rival stops asking questions. It feels like finally being real, so you stop searching. Why keep opening doors in a house you are now certain is fully lit? The first sleep was uneasy. This one is proud, and proud is a far deeper sleep. Follow it into an ordinary life, because it is already there. Every time you have looked at someone lately and thought, they are simply not awake enough to understand this, the new face was doing the looking. You took your one lit room and used it to rule that another whole human being was dark. You shut a door they were standing at, then felt their shallowness where your own closed door actually was. The woman in the quiet kitchen felt it arrive within days. The grief was still there, the ache of the years she could barely remember. But alongside it came a quiet, warming thought. The other parents she knew, still busy, still certain, still trading the same opinions at the same gatherings. They had never once questioned any of it. She had, and she saw that now. And just like that, the same woman who had spent 20 years performing a self for a house full of people found a new self to perform, a deeper one, a woken one, and she began, without noticing, to perform it in the same quiet kitchen. I will not soften this next part because softening it is how the pride survives. Your certainty that you are awake is the very thing closing your eyes again. The old sleep was never this convincing. The moment you are sure you have arrived, the lamp goes back off and the proud persona picks the keys back up. It will run your life for years exactly as the first one did, except now you will call it wisdom. Then breathe, because seeing this does not condemn you. It is the way out. The new face was never who you are. It was the persona doing the only move it knows, rebuilding the instant it is seen. It rebuilt. It always rebuilds. Your task is simple and hard. Catch it in the act, the way you just did, and set the light back down to its real size. You do not have to hate the persona for rebuilding. You only have to catch it doing it. One lamp, one room, and a great deal still dark. And the relief in that is enormous. You do not have to be the most awake person in the room anymore. You never did. That job was exhausting, and it was never real. You get to be a person with one lamp lit, standing honestly in a mostly dark house. That is a smaller thing to be than the enlightened one, and it is also the first true thing you have been in a long time. But once you stop needing to be the awake one, a question opens that the pride was there to keep shut. If waking is not a place you arrive, if you are never going to be finished, then what are you actually meant to do with the single lamp you have? What you actually do is quieter than anything the word awakening promised. You accept that there is no finish. Jung is explicit that becoming yourself never completes. It is a slow, lifelong turning of the unconscious into the conscious, one room at a time, running as long as you do. He describes his own path toward it as a slow circling, a circumambulation, he calls it. The same center approached again and again from a new side, never head on, never finished. That sounds like bad news to the part of you that wanted to arrive. It is the opposite. With no arrival, there is no test to pass, no rank to hold, and nothing to be above. There is only the next dark room, and whether you are willing to carry the lamp into it, that is a life a person can actually live, instead of a summit they fail, forever, to permanently reach. And it hands back the thing the new face stole, which was other people. When waking was a rank, everyone else was either competition or evidence. When waking is only the work of lighting your own rooms, the people around you stop being beneath you and become fellow occupants of the same difficult house, each with rooms lit and rooms dark, exactly like you. You lose the height and gain the company, and that trade feels like a loss only to the mask. The thing that has been noticing all of it, the one who saw the mask, lit the lamp, and caught the pride on the wall, was never your ego growing more impressive. Your ego is only another room in the house. The one doing the seeing is something larger and quieter, which Jung calls the self, the true center of the psyche that the small, proud ego keeps mistaking for itself. Jung draws the line cleanly. The ego is the center of your awareness, the little I that says my name. The self is the center of the whole psyche, conscious and unconscious together, the circle that contains the ego as one point inside it. The ego wants to be the hero of the awakening, but the ego is the mass's home address. The self has no need to be awake in front of anyone, because it was never performing for the room. It was never asleep, and it was never proud. It was waiting, behind your face, for you to light enough rooms to find it. Jung has an image for that meeting. Behind the mask, he says, lies the mirror of the water, and whoever bends to look into it meets their own face first, and then whatever has been living beneath it all along. He writes a version of the same idea in a letter to a woman named Fanny Bowditch, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The waking this points to is that one lamp, turned inward, onto the room you spent a life refusing to enter, until you meet, at last, the face behind the mask. So stop trying to become awake, as though it were something you could finally put on and keep. You will never arrive as someone finished, and you can stop trying. What you can become is quicker to feel the mask take over, quicker to reach for the lamp again. That is the entire skill. It does not photograph well, and it will never trend, and it is the only version of any of this that is real. But when you finally set that down, when you stop needing to have arrived, the whole house changes in the small light. The same ordinary rooms you could not remember living in, and the stranger who was living in them. The woman in the quiet kitchen is still there. For weeks she swung between the two things, the bitter grief for the years she can barely remember, and the new private pride that at least now, unlike the people around her, she sees. This afternoon she does neither. She sets one place at the table. She feels the actual weight of the single plate in her hand, the worn rim under her thumb, the plainness of the quiet around her. It is the first fully present minute she can remember in years, and it is almost unbearably ordinary. She does not feel enlightened. She feels like a woman setting a plate down in her own kitchen, awake, for once, and it is enough. She sets the plate down. She looks around the kitchen, really looks at the light on the counter, the clock, the chairs her children used to fill. All of it has been here the whole time, every ordinary day. and today she is here with it. She has no plan to hold on to the feeling. She knows it will slip, and all she has really learned is where the lamp is. The one who walks out of this carries no torch and stands above no one. It is a plainer figure than the hero you were hoping to become. When you stop needing to be awake, you finally are, in the only way that was ever on offer. One ordinary minute at a time, fully lived, and then the next one. You will still forget. That does not change. The mask will slide back over your eyes in some room you were not watching, and you will run on autopilot for an hour or a week or a season, because that is what a human being does. What changes is that now you know the feel of the lamp, and you can reach for it again, a little sooner each time. None of that is failure. The forgetting is part of it, and so is catching yourself and reaching back for the lamp. And the years you grieved, the ones you cannot remember living, you do not get those back. It does not help to pretend otherwise, but the rest of them were never going to be lost the same way, not once the lamp came on. No one is handing the past back, and the gift was never going to be the past anyway. The gift is smaller, and it is real. This table, this afternoon, this one room you are actually standing in, which the mask would have crossed without leaving a mark, and which you are now finally here for. So this is what happens when you realize you were never awake until now. Nothing dramatic, no arrival, no rank, no floodlit house. You light one lamp, you catch the mask and the pride, and you set the light back down to its real size, and you go on living in the same ordinary house you always did, room by room, awake for stretches, asleep for others, no longer needing to be more awake than anyone. The recognition that shook you was real. You did sleepwalk through years that should have been yours, and the mask did do the living. That was never a defect in you, and waking from it was never a summit you get to stand on. It was one lamp in one room. The only thing that ever made it dangerous was how badly the ego wanted to hold it up as proof that you were finally better than everyone still in the dark. Set the mask down. You do not have to wear it, and you do not have to wear the new one either. The one that feels like depth and is only pride in cleaner clothes. Being awake is small and unglamorous. You stand in one lit room, present and unimpressive, and then you carry the light into the next dark one for the rest of your life, with no audience and no finish line. There is no getting ahead of the sleepers in it. There never was. That is the whole secret the title promised, and it is quieter than you hoped. Nothing arrived. You noticed once, now you get to keep noticing. Keep the lamp small and keep it honest. There are rooms in you still dark that you cannot name yet. No one is asking you to pretend the dark rooms are lit. The only work is to keep walking down the hall, lamp in hand. Before you go, one question, and I want your answer in the comments. Which room are you going to light next? Say it plainly, just like this. The dark room I am not ready to enter yet.
Empaths aren't broken. They're alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com.